All right, welcome back to The Hill. So attacks between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley are starting to heat up. In a fundraising email, Trump has described Haley as a quote-unquote puppet GOP candidate, as she just received the endorsement of the influential group founded by conservative Charles Koch. Haley is now amping up her attacks.
I am running against President Trump. I'm waiting for him to get on a debate stage. He can't keep hiding the way he's hiding. He can't start acting like President Biden. He needs to get on the debate stage. He needs to confront us. He needs to let us, talk about the differences and go forward.
Today, we also heard from the former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. In an interview, he said this about the former president, Trump, if his campaign is about renew, rebuilding, and restore, he'll win. If it's about revenge, he'll lose. Kevin McCarthy, a bit unfiltered today.
Very unfiltered, and this is all coming as, there's Liz Cheney is coming out with her own book with some unfiltered comments about Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, about
but, in terms of Kevin McCarthy, going back to that, he's in a position where he can say whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And I think he's very much, he's in a chamber right now that is on the defense when it comes to 2024, and that goes up to the top of the ticket as well.
He was also asked today about who he thinks Donald Trump should pick as his running mate, and here's what Kevin McCarthy said, quote, well, right now, I think it would be Nikki Haley, in my view, but the question is, who you select, will they serve? So that's another question you have to have, and it's about addition.
I don't think he's picking Nikki Haley. I think it's going to be like Ivanka.
Come on, you don't.
Oh no, yes. I'm not just saying that as a throwaway line. He's going to pick somebody intensely loyal to him because everybody wants him out, even the people who say they don't. Anybody who would be of the level to be a VP candidate, normal person like Nikki Haley, wants him out, and they will be plotting to get him out.
Kristi Noem is hanging outside of Trump's window right now, peeking in over the ledge. I'm ready, and I agree with our Democratic friend.
Which part?
No, the part that if you're Trump, you don't want, and I say this with love, you don't want Mick Mulvaney's, Mike Pence. You don't want people of principle and character in your administration who are occasionally going to say, I'm sorry, but that's illegal, or I'm sorry, no, you can't do that. You don't want Mulvaney's. You want factotums. You want people who are going to do what you tell them.
The wrinkle is this, and I've been there before, and I said, look, they don't trust each other, they don't like each other. I've gone back and forth on Nikki Haley as a vice presidential candidate. And again, even assuming she would take the job, which she might not. But here's why he would take her and why she would say yes. Number one, if he really believed he needed that to get over the line, if he really believed adding a woman like Nikki Haley helps him in the suburbs, he decides, okay, I'll put past bygones be bygones, I'll pick her. And if she decides that she wants to run in 2028 and she needs to stay relevant, she might take the job. Those are the circumstances. I don't think it's outrageous to think that might be the ticket. I'm still with Steyerwalt on this. I think Kristi Noem is at the top of the list.
What do you make of that first quote about renew, rebuild, restore? Who wins? If it's revenge, he loses.
He's wrong.
Kevin McCarthy's wrong.
Kevin's wrong on that. I have a great deal of respect for Kevin. Trump is going to do what Trump does. If Kevin McCarthy was a better politician than Donald Trump, Kevin McCarthy would still be Speaker. And he might be president. He might be president. And
if Kevin McCarthy would have put a knife in Donald Trump when he had a chance, Kevin McCarthy would still be Speaker.
The point is, people.
That was Kevin McCarthy's big mistake.
A lot of folks, us, okay, folks who do this for a living, people who are reasonable politicians or pundits, have never understood Donald Trump, don't understand why people like him, don't understand his popularity, but it's there. And I think Kevin, with all due respect, is wrong. Trump is going to rise.
But voters want it to be about them, not about the politician.
Well,
the voters, want it to be about them. The voters voting for Trump want something else.
But it's one on the margins. He needs to win on the margins. The people screaming at the rally don't care what he says. They know he's a horrible person, but they think he's their horrible person. It's the guys on the margin that he has to convince to vote for him that want to know what he's going to do for them. And if all he's doing is running around saying, well, I'm going to go get Mick Mulvaney for writing that article about me,
he had
it's not going to happen.
15 million votes more in 2020 than he had in 2016 after everybody knew what they were voting for.
I'll give you the last word.
Well, the way I interpreted that comment from Mick Mulvaney, I'm sorry, that guy, former Speaker McCarthy, the way I interpreted that was essentially McCarthy warning, like many Republicans have, for Donald Trump to stop talking about 2020, stop talking about, and talk about the economy and such, and we've seen that that's hurt Republicans in the past.
Thank you for watching, and make sure you go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.